Hello, everybody, and welcome to Primetime / The Exodus, which is a show with Blake Timmons and Nathan Smith. We'll explain a little bit about the Primetime / The Exodus. There is going to be a little bit of rebranding. We're excited about that because of what the topic is and what the objective is. Right now, I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm going to bring in Blake and Nathan. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing well. How are you,
man?
I'm good. Blake's camera cleared up. It's a miracle.
It's perfect timing.
All right. So let's get right to the whole rebranding thing because I think that's important, and then we're going to get into the meat of the show. So we've been calling it Primetime mainly because y'all didn't come up with a name, and I did, and that's and Blake always wanted to be Primetime, and so I helped him out a little bit, right? And Nathan just had to suck it up and go along. And now you guys are tired of that.
The ride.
I thought it would be. I didn't like it all that much, especially now that I know who Primetime is. So.
Well, and you know he got a new job, right?
I do. I don't understand that at all. I really don't.
It's marketing, dude. It's marketing. I mean, how many kids are going to want to go to that school with him, Warren Sapp, and Terrell Owens coaching?
I'm friends with the guy
I can't imagine Dion wanting to be a part of something that's not even a Division I. You know, he's all flash and no substance. So
I'm friends with the guy whose son is the quarterback at Jackson State. We had a long conversation about it the other day. It actually sounds, I don't know, it might work out. I hope it does.
It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. I think it's going to bring a lot of. I guarantee you, there's money involved, or he wouldn't have done it, especially not on the D1 level. But you know what? It can be good for sports. I mean, it really can. I hope that it is. I hope that there's a positive that comes out of that. But I think that there's a lot of kids, and obviously Jackson State, I think, is hoping for a home run there. But they're probably going to get more attention than any other college, at least for a little while. So Dion went into Arkansas last night and got his rear whipped though. Barely, but he did.
Trinity Christian Cedar Hill did?
Yeah. They got beat by Bryant, which Bryant has been the 7A state champs in Arkansas for the last 2 years in a row. So it wasn't a cupcake team they were playing. But I did have to reach out to some of my Arkansas buddies that were talking about whipping Texas. I'm like, y'all don't understand how small this school down here, right? I mean, y'all got a 7A school in Arkansas, and y'all barely beat what would be considered in Arkansas a 1A or 2A school.
TAPS Division II. Yeah.
Right.
Meanwhile, everyone's super confused, thinking that we're a sports show and have no idea what we're talking about now.
All right, so let's exit us into.
I see what you did there. That's good.
Yeah, well, I'm smart like that. So Nathan, I'm gonna let you take the lead on this and talk a little bit about where y'all started with this show and why the rebrand and change.
Yeah, so when you came to us with the idea of doing the show as a part of the difference, really fit what we were trying to do. Blake and I are both entrepreneurs in the financial world. But beyond that, beyond trying to help clients and do what's right in a market, middle-class American market that is in great need, we had a bigger passion for developing leaders, developing business owners, helping people, bringing them into the world that we're in and teaching them to do the things that we're doing so they can have that same type of success. So, when we think about that, we've talked, if you've heard previous shows, a lot about the concept of, the employee mindset and the entrepreneurial mindset and why so many people are employees, why there's less entrepreneurs. And we've covered it without trying to rehash all of it. I mean, all the shows are on our Facebook pages and YouTube and everything, but without having to go in too much detail, it comes down to risk. It comes down to education. It comes down to just knowledge, whatever the case may be. But in this landscape, especially now in the midst of this, global pandemic, there seems to be a good time for a mass exodus, in a sense, a way of breaking free of, whatever, if it's a job that you hated, a job that unfortunately had to let you go, or just this feeling of just kind of floating through life and not really reaching your full potential, that we want to help people, not to be too biblical, but kind of moved to the promised land in a sense, where there's more opportunity, there's more out there. And I think so many people are just stuck. I'm going to say rut again, even though we got Adam chastised us last week for saying
the rutification.
The rutification of America. Yes, I'm going to use it again. But it's true. I think that's really kind of where we're at. So leading people, not that Blake is Moses or anything, but leading people on this journey into something better, I think is something that's a big passion to us, or for us. And it just kind of fit, because it's not an easy transition necessarily. There's a lot of questions, whether you're, end up doing work with us or just, doing another business opportunity that you're passionate about. There's transition, there's risk, and then navigating those waters, I think, is part of the journey that I think we want to take people on. Great explanation. Blake, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the waters of the Red Sea, I guess, is what we're navigating, huh?
That's right.
But no, I mean, that's a great explanation, Nathan. And I mean, a lot of it, I know what we're going to talk about today is, we talk about just the freedom and the change in your mindset. And we wouldn't be talking about this if we weren't very, very aware that there are so many people whose lives have not turned out the way that they want it to turn out. And they have these, you're always going to have employees, right? And there's always going to be a need for that. But there's so many people that have the ability to do more that haven't come to that realization yet, or have suppressed that deep inside of them, so they don't have to deal with the pain of getting up and sitting in traffic to go to a job that they don't like, for a boss that they can't stand, surrounded by people that they don't get along with, for not enough money, just enough money to get by, and they live their entire life that way. And we want to give people the opportunity to have the exodus from that, if it's something, when they hear that and they think, man, that is me. Like, so you're telling me there's another option out here? And we're like, absolutely, there's another option out there. And we want to give people the tools to do that. And we want to be sitting there saying, let my people go. And then, they can go and we'll cross the rest of the day.
I should have been better prepared and had some audio for all of that. That would have been really cool.
In fact, there's a VBS song somewhere in there. I'm not sure.
It is Vacation Bible School. Here we come. So Blake, you were on a show, I think yesterday. I do so many of these. I don't have days anymore. I have hours and shows. That's how I keep up with time. But we talked about simplifying the process and having some transparency, and we talked about that a lot of people were intimidated by making changes in their life because a lot of people have overcomplicated it, and therefore we have come to believe, and we have a mindset that the things that we could accomplish are just way too complicated. And when you're raising kids and you're married and you're trying to, pay the bills, a lot of times people don't think they have the time to learn something new. I think that's kind of why we get into a rut, is we're like, do I have the time to set aside from my family, because I'm working 8, 10, 12 hours a day just to put food on the table? I want to have some quality time with family. Where do I put in this learning curve that I'm going to need to break free from where I am? And how long is that going to take? And we talked about that a lot of this is more simple than what a lot of people think and what it sounds. And we want to talk about mindset today. And one is you guys are really helping break the complicated mindset and transform that into a simplified mindset. So let's talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about the growth versus fixed, and that kind of goes in with what y'all are talking about. That's some things that I want to address, and then we will talk about the entrepreneurial mindset versus an employee mindset. So to kick this off and get it going, let's talk about the simplification of what you guys are trying to do through your coaching, training, and counseling, and how you want to help people understand that this dream that they've always had, it's not as complicated to get there as they've either convinced themselves or somebody else has convinced them.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, Blake.
You go ahead.
I think that for some people, what they want to really do or what they want to really be, what their passions are, they try to make that their exodus, not to use the word too much, but their business or whatever the case may be. And there's not a good structure in place to make it profitable, to really get them to the point that they want to get to. And what I think people don't realize is sometimes you need a vehicle, a better vehicle that's well established, that has some skins in the game, that helps you. It may not be the business you want to ultimately end up in, or it may not speak to you necessarily from a passion standpoint, but at the end of the day, it's going to get you to the point where, like, for instance, if you want to travel the world, you may not get there. You may not have the money to do that by just doing, there's a lot of online travel businesses right now, I think, and which not going super well for travel. Unfortunately, I know a couple people that are in that, but sometimes what we really want to do, there's not a good structure in place to get us there to our ultimate goal. But if I have a business that, I can start and expand and duplicate and grow, it fills a need, obviously, which is a main, one of the big mantras in business, to find a need and fill a need. And that's going to get me the time. That's going to get me the income. That's going to get me the freedom to pursue those passions. Well, that's just as beneficial if I were to try to skip straight to the thing that I'm most passionate about. And I think that's a problem. People have these big dreams and goals, but they try to skip directly to them without looking at another avenue. And that another avenue is, okay, well, I'm never going to get there working 9 to 5 in this particular role, especially, if you're in a job where there's absolutely no upward mobility. And we've already talked about how upward mobility is somewhat of a deceptive illusion in terms of security. But it's time I think, for people to think outside the box. Okay, Blake and I in finance. Maybe, I don't like finance. It's boring. I can't do it. It's hard, math, all those things, which is not true at all. But if you take it from this perspective, okay, if this is something I could be successful at, and it's going to help me grow personally, develop a skill, have a meet a need, and obviously become more successful, make money, whatever. Well, now I can utilize that to fund my passions, whether it's travel, whether it's ministry, whether it's whatever the case may be. So it's again, we try to get from A to C, and we can never get to A to C, but we got to find the right B, which happens to stand for business. I didn't mean to do that, but it worked out nicely. So that's just kind of a shift in thinking. I think that is where a lot of people, hopefully we can direct people in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit. No, I'm just playing.
Shut up. Made perfect sense. I'm going to say it again next time I talk.
What are we supposed to say, Nathan? How are we supposed to answer that? Did that make sense?
Supposed to say yes.
Yes, of course it made sense.
Okay, yeah. Golly. Just make me feel stupid.
You just say, that's how Austin Barrett ends every sentence. Makes sense? Makes sense. And so you're starting to say, makes sense? Makes sense.
Well, I need something.
But no, I agree. And I think there's some people that they allow themselves to have short-term vision. And part of that is because they're just each day, right? And they got to pay the mortgage and they got to pay the bill. They just end up, again, getting in this rut. And that rut gives you short-term vision. I can't even think about the future. I only am afforded the opportunity to think about today. And so most people don't end up thinking about where they want to end up. And so if you can just take a step back right now and think about where is it? And maybe you got to go back to 5 years ago before life got so busy or whatever has happened in your life. And you have to think about, where do I want to end up with my life? Where do I want to end up in 20, 30 years, maybe 10 years? And then think about, is what I am doing now going to get me there? And then if you think about that, this is where I want to be, is what I'm going to do now, is if what I'm doing now is not going to get me there, you come to that conclusion. And what the crap are you doing? Like, you got to change something, right? You just said, this is where I want to be. what I'm doing now is not going to get me there, then change it. Like, I mean, we get one of these things to live. What are you doing? And so that.
But Blake, I have good benefits.
I
have such good benefits. That's one of the things.
Yeah. They pay me pretty good. They're going to take care of me, except for the 45 million people that just lost their job when they thought they had security, because security doesn't exist in this life, what I always say. And so you might as well take a shot at it. And so the shot that me and Nathan were taking, and the advice I would give to people, it would kind of be a little cavalier for us to just say, hey, quit your job, start your own business today. It'll all work out pretty good, I'm sure. A lot of people would end up not being in great situations if that's what we were sitting here telling them. But the advice I could give people is you want to find something that mitigates the risk. A huge part of mitigating risk is the ability to start something part-time. And so you find something where there's a system in place where you can start part-time, and you don't have to take the huge risk of leaving the income you have now and trying to replace it day one, because that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. Business takes time to develop. Most people aren't in the situation to, they have whatever, $50,000, $100,000 saved up. And, if they're starting their own business, that may eat up all the costs right there. But it's hard to be in a situation to start your own business. And so find something where you don't have to worry about any sort of huge startup, and you're able to start it off part-time. And that takes care of a huge part of the risk, to where, hey, I took my shot. Maybe you fell flat on your face the first time, right? Most people that are successful have all kinds of bruises and bloody nose and black eyes from all the failures they sustained. And then they eventually fought through that, and now they're successful because they had the perseverance, and they expected the failure, and they expected to not quit when those failures came, and to keep on going and not quit till they became successful. But find a system that mitigates those risks is what me and Nathan have been able to do.
Here's an interesting thing that you said, Blake, about failure. You've probably experienced this too with people that you spoke with. We're really afraid of failure when it's obvious. But then if we live an entire life not reaching our potential, isn't that a failure? But we seem to be okay with that. We seem to be okay with that. Yeah. I guess because by the time we realize it, that we die, which is really super depressing. So it's exactly what you're saying. We're settling for less. And, again, we're not stupid. We know that, not everybody can just go start a business. Okay. There has to be employees. We have corporations. I mean, they all serve a purpose. Most of them do really good things. But literally, even if it's from one job to another, I know we talk about business, but there's people that will just sit in a job they hate and not even try to go find a job that they don't hate. I mean, even if it's that,
yeah.
When
you're being worked 12 hours a day, sometimes, right. When do you find the time? And is right. that done intentionally by your employer to kind of keep you, as Blake would say, in some shackles, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people, I don't have time to do anything. I know it's part-time. I don't have time to do anything. You don't have time not to do anything is really what we should be saying. So you are worked to the bone. You're working 12-hour days. You clearly hate it, but you don't have an exit strategy. So what are you doing? I mean, it's really my question.
So that's going to lead me to the next thing. That was really cool. It's like we planned this, and we didn't.
Not a bit.
So in talking, because we don't plan at all. We don't plan at all. We just nope. Wing it. We're talking about mindset, and I want to discuss now the growth versus fixed mindset, and what the differences are. And Nathan, you were talking about I don't have time. That is one of my biggest pet peeves professionally, is people that say I'm too busy or I don't have time. God granted all of us with 24 hours. The guy that's doing more than me doesn't have more time in a day than I do. The guy that's doing less than I'm doing doesn't have less time in a day than I do. It's how we choose to use that time. And sometimes there has to be sacrifices made. But let's go back to the growth and fixed mindset. let's talk a little bit about what a fixed mindset looks like. So do you guys want to talk about that? You want me to start, or where do we want to go with this since we're so well prepared?
No, you take it. I want to, because you had mentioned earlier some of
See,
the
you just gave it away. We did not prepare. Remember, that's our story today.
That's right. You had thought about mentioning earlier.
I didn't hear a thing.
That's right. Blake was.
Well, Blake's always late, so he's not going to hear anything.
That's a good point. That's a good point. No, you'd mentioned earlier about just understanding some of the, you taught some classes or training on this before, but so one of the things in terms of fixed mindset, like just kind of you start off and kind of tell us what when you hear that term, what comes to mind?
So when I started the difference, my goal was to bring on people and allow them to bring awareness to the commonalities that they had, the people that were successful versus, and I use the term a lot, acceptable versus exceptional, right? Acceptable is do enough to get enough. Exceptional is do more than is expected. And so one of the things that I've picked up is in starting a business and in anything that you do, whether it's sports, Blake, you know this, whether it's in your marriage and your relationship, mindset for me is the number one key, because everybody jumping into a business, everybody that decides I'm going to go into business for myself, they do so based on a dream, not a nightmare. They do it based on a dream. If you don't have the right mindset, there's going to be during that process of chasing your dream, there's going to be a few nightmares. And if you're not prepared to handle those nightmares based on your mindset, there's going to be some setbacks that you may not ever be able to get over. And you may not reach potential, and you may not even be able to finish out why you got into business for yourself. So in talking about mindset, I started searching it a lot. And one of the first things that I found was fixed versus growth. And a fixed mindset is the belief that how it is how it's meant to be. I can't change anything. This is my destiny. This is where I have to go. It is my lot in life. A growth mindset, on the other hand, is one where I don't have to accept my situation. I don't have to accept my environment. I do not have to accept my surroundings. When you look, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it's unfortunate. In some of the past shows, if our viewers and listeners will go back, we talked about how we're conditioned to have certain mindsets, but a fixed mindset is a victim mentality. This is just the way it's supposed to be. I kind of got the short end of the stick. Nothing's going to be better than what I've got. So I might as well just accept it and keep going. And so what I enjoy about y'all's show, what I enjoy about watching what y'all are doing in your community for your own business, for other people's business, and who you're looking to help. One of the challenges I believe y'all are going to have, and if you're aware of it, it's not going to be that big of a challenge, is helping people transition from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Growth mindset, I believe, I can, I will, I should, right? It is all the positive things that we all know. A fixed mindset, that's the one we've got to break. We've got to break that belief that this place that I'm working with the job that I hate and the boss I can't stand, with people that I don't invite to my Christmas party, that's a fixed mindset. That's a fixed mindset, because I'm and Blake, you talked about it in a show previously, just a few weeks ago, about being in bondage in a way, right? A fixed mindset puts you there mentally and emotionally. It's going to put you in mental bondage. And that is why it's hard to roll out of bed in the morning and want to go to a job where I feel like that. And so being able to help people transition from the fixed to a growth is what is reinstilling and reinstalling that hope and that belief that I have more to offer this world, myself and my family, than I've been convinced that I do. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
How's it feel? Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. First of all, how come whenever sports is mentioned, it's always Blake? Blake, you're familiar with sports. As if I never did anything sports or athletic related.
I coached Blake. I never saw you play sports.
Well, I was decent. Okay, so
I
there
seen
you go.
you swing a golf club, and I actually am impressed. You have a good golf swing.
I don't right now. My back is like an 80-year-old man. But thank you for that.
Man.
By the way,
Nathan is on the couch and watched a lot of sports, so he does have a lot of experience. It's true.
Okay.
Watch a lot of sports. Anyways, I'll invite you to my Christmas party, Lyndon, so don't worry.
Thank you.
Now I forgot the question. I forgot. Now we've derailed.
Well, the question was, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Blake, take it away.
Yeah, I'll expand. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Lyndon. And I think a couple things on that. I think you may have heard, like, the beginning of wisdom is actually the realization that you don't know anything. It's all the ignorant people that are always wanting to tell you their opinions because they know everything when actually they're stupid. And that's why they think they know everything. If they were smart, they'd realize that they don't know a thing. So
we're not pulling any punches here, apparently.
Getting back to the growth mindset. So if you have that mindset, then somebody is always looking for more knowledge, for more wisdom, for becoming a better person, for developing, getting closer every day to who God created them to be, knowing that they'll never fully get there, but they can come as close to that glory that they were intended to is possible. And I think that's the growth mindset. But also, I think I like to call the growth mindset the fighter's mindset, because here's the biggest differences between the fixed and the growth. And you alluded to this, Lyndon, when something bad happens, I guess you just, the universe is trying to tell me something that, I wasn't supposed, this just wasn't in the cards for me, right? And so here's the problem with that. There's always going to be something keeping you from where you want to get. So you literally have destined yourself to fixed failure if every time something bad happens, just the way it's supposed to be. Right. So the growth mentality or the fighter's mentality is knowing that everything good in this life is opposed. And so a good marriage is opposed. Why is it so hard? A positive mindset, I think Holly just commented, is opposed. Why is it so easy to be negative and so hard to be positive? Just take a step back and think about that. Because everyone knows it's so easy to be negative and it's so easy to be positive.
No, it's not.
What is it? What is it set into this algorithm of this world that makes that true? And I would say that there's an enemy rolling around like a prowling lion waiting to devour its enemy. And so that means that everything is opposed. So getting back to the growth mindset, the fighter's mindset, you're ready for it. You know that everything good is opposed. So if I am going after this great goal and I'm going after everything that I believe that I was intended to be, I'm going after this abundant life that I believe God intended us to go after and dream, and these dreams that he placed inside of us, I'm ready for a fight. And I know that is opposed. And so every time I wake up and go after that journey, you're putting on your armor, you're putting on your boxing gloves, and hey, I'm going after greatness today. And there's a reason why most people never achieve it, because they have the fix. Something happens and they're like, oh, sorry. But if you have the fighter's mentality, you're ready to get after it. That's one of the most important lessons I feel like it's my responsibility to teach football players. And we talk about even before every game, we have this, we fight chant, and we go through all this stuff, because I know that if they graduate from Dallas Christian, just a bunch of nice boys ready to go out and into the world and be successful, they're going to get devoured. And so I know that if they're going to be successful, they have to have this understanding that success is opposed. And so you better be ready to fight.
Yeah. I had a coach once in college, and we were actually playing Central Arkansas. They were number 1 in the nation. We were number 4. And at halftime, we were down by 3 points. And our coach, we lost the game, by the way. I'll go ahead and give the spoiler alert, but we lost by 1 point. But our coach told, it's something he said at halftime. He goes, anybody can play when you're ahead, but it takes a man to play when you're behind.
Yeah.
And I have never forgotten that in everything that I do, because I get challenged every day. And sometimes I'm like, why me? Why me, Lord? Why can't I just get some momentum going? But that leads me to the next thing, and that's the employee versus the entrepreneur mindset. And Blake, you talked about being a fighter. I like to use the word, and I hate to use this given who y'all are playing this week, but a warrior. The warrior mentality.
Yeah.
That just for me, and so as an employee with an employee mindset, and we're going to get into this a little deeper about transitioning from corporate into entrepreneurship, where the money is. As an employee, we don't have to have the warrior mindset, because typically somebody else fights the battle for us. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, that's one reason why we take those positions. As I was telling Nate earlier, since he went ahead and did and sold me out about the preparation. But as I was telling him earlier, an employee is told when to come to work, what to do when they get there, how to do it, and then when they can go home. Right? And so the responsibility, pretty much, they're responsible for doing their job, but they have abdicated the risk and responsibility to management and to ownership, which is, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? The owner is the person that assumes the most risk and responsibility, but therein lies the reward. Therein lies the value of what we're worth. It's the person that will assume the largest responsibility and the largest risk will always get the biggest reward. Now, they are at risk of losing more than anybody else. But back to what I'm saying, if we're talking about those battles every day, an employee and an employee mindset doesn't have to fight the battles. Management fights that battle. So in breaking away from the corporate world and going into running your own business, you've got to have the right mindset. That you got to have the entrepreneurial mindset. Number one, I accept the responsibility. Number two, I accept the risk. Number three, I'm going to be mentally and emotionally prepared for all the challenges that come my way, or I'm going to surround myself, and I'm setting you guys up right now for this. I'm going to surround myself with the support and with the team that is going to help me make all the transitions. You see what I did there?
I did.
Now take it and run.
Well,
Nathan, the ball is in your court. See, we talked about sports, so there we go.
Thank you. My worst sport. I appreciate that. Shut up. Before I go into what you're saying, I was just thinking as we were talking, looking at it from a little bit more of a historic view, because we're talking about challenges and things that we go through. And if you think about, before the Industrial Revolution, from a job standpoint, you had everybody that was basically, they owned a business, they were an apprentice, or they were just they were providing their own way. I mean, let's think if you were like a cabbage farmer or something. Your seriously, your livelihood is based on.
Where did a cabbage farmer come from?
I was watching a show the other day. The guy was a cabbage farmer. I mean, people, didn't just come out of nowhere. Someone's got to farm cabbage, Lyndon.
Okay, you're right.
But anyways, so your livelihood is based entirely on your efforts, but there's no system there, right? If you don't go out and plant your crop, or at least if you're a blacksmith, if you don't find horses and shoeing horses and all the other things that blacksmiths do, I don't know what all they do, but your entire
called a farrier.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your entire well-being is based on your efforts, and we talk about that in an employee mindset now, but the employer has some of that responsibility. They're like, they're putting their structure in place, which I think makes it worse for us in a sense, because taking it back to, before the Industrial Revolution, if I didn't get up and plant the cabbage, if my crop failed, I'm screwed. And I've got a lot of things going against me. I have disease. I have obviously just the normal lifestyle. Let's take the West, for instance. I mean, you had disease. You had, our medical systems hadn't been established as much as they are now. You had not as strong a system of government, and crime was kind of rampant. You had all these different things on the Western Front that were challenges, but you had to navigate them on your own, essentially, right? So you're completely responsible for your outcome. So you have a lot of people. I mean, some of the great names in our country in terms of, your Carnegies and your Rockefellers and all these people that, really took a chance. They were fraught with the same exact type of endeavors that the average everyday person was. They just pursued, they broke through those barriers. So fast forward to today, we live in a technologically advanced culture that mitigates so many of those challenges that were facing people, 100, 120, 150 years ago. And yet we have given away such responsibility that we should be having in our own lives. We've put it in the hands of our employers. So it almost lulls us into a sense we talk about of security, because we don't have those risks. And we should be more excited to take greater risks, to jump out of our comfort zone, because there is a sense of protection that there never was before. You talk about, Blake, there's no real security. That's true, but there is so much from a society standpoint. We're living in a much better time, and yet we still find excuses. We still find ways to be lazier. We still find ways to do all the things that.
But isn't our culture conditioning us to feel that way? We're in a done for you. We're in a microwave. Yeah. We're in a microwave done for you society.
And I've said that too. Like for every bit of tech, for everything that technology improves, there's almost a mental sense of some sort of a discipline that we've lost by not having to do things a harder way.
The dumbing down of America.
While a lot of the inconveniences that befell previous life are now obsolete, we, instead of taking the bull by the horn and say, man, I've got no barriers. I can do whatever I want in this society. If I just work hard, I can succeed. We found ways to basically just we've created failure in a sense by just having that mindset. And I don't mean to. I was just thinking about that as we're going through this. We live in a time where it should be a natural instinct to say, oh my gosh, like look at all the things we have, look at the blessings we have, look at the things that we don't have to deal with that other generations have had to deal with. We should just be gung-ho to go out and be who we need to be, who we want to be, who we believe we can be. And yet, you're right, the flip side of that, the sacrifice of being more technological, is you kind of trade off certain things. And I think that's really been kind of a big issue of where we are today.
So knowing the answer that you guys know, real quick, Blake, knowing the answer you guys are going to give, what's more risky, being dependent or independent?
I'd say it's more risky. Dependent.
I agree. That's my point. I mean, if I'm working for an employer and I'm abdicating all my responsibility and power to fix problems, and I'm leaving it up to him, well, that's why I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. Because I believe in myself more than I do anybody else.
It goes back to going through, the steps of freedom that we talked about a couple shows ago. And because of the stage that we've gotten to, we've created a dependent society. And so, people don't know how to fight for that anymore, right? They don't have the tools to become self-sufficient. And so they've become dependent. And that's where I talk about, Nathan, you talk about what I say in terms of security. When I say that, I guess I shouldn't say that security doesn't fully exist. It exists in some levels, but there's 45 million people that lost their jobs that thought they had security. They had the illusion of security, and that security did not exist. I mean, think about this in terms of security. Like, Lyndon, you're talking about the employer takes on the risk, and so the employer does, and so the employee doesn't really have to, and the employee can kind of operate on autopilot and doesn't have as much responsibility. You just go home and not have to worry about that. But that means the reward is far greater for the employer, right? But what about this? What if no one buys anything off Amazon today? What if no one buys anything from Walmart? What if Nike doesn't sell any shoes today, right? That's the small-minded mindset of people that don't want to go out and take a risk, right? Because that's the risk that the employer takes. But I would call that pretty secure that that's not going to happen, right? But because they went out and they took the risk, now obviously, Nike started selling shoes out of the back of their car. Amazon started off as a book company and have grown to what they are now. But they started off taking the initial risk, and obviously that's not everybody's story. Those are elite examples, but it's a story that's possible for anybody in America in this age. And so
I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story right now, Blake, that applies, and that's COVID. I know a lot of people that are self-employed entrepreneurs, independent contractors, and when COVID happened and businesses were shut down, these small independent people, including myself, figured out a way to remain in business, while a lot of other people got sent home and they still haven't got a chance to come back to work. Yeah. So they had no control over the risk that they or the assumed security that they thought they had, and like that it was gone. But I am watching on this network, I am watching business owners adapt and overcome the challenges of COVID because they have the ability and the power to do so. They assume the responsibility, and they're not going to sit back and take sick days until this thing is over.
Did you say, Lyndon, one of you guys cut out a little bit. Did you say that, Blake, did you say you think it's more risky to be a business owner? Did you hear that? Is that what you said?
Is it more risky to be dependent or independent? And I said it's more risky to be dependent.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what I was, because I was thinking the same thing. It feels maybe temporarily in the moment, it feels more secure because you have a consistent paycheck, you have benefits, and these are good things. Like having good insurance is not a bad thing. Like, again, it's good to have all those things, but it's
not that good anymore.
Right. It's, if you know where you really want to go, like if you want to be, let's say, I want to be a millionaire. Let's say that's your goal. I want to be a millionaire, and you're in a job that you're never going to get there, then yeah, that is the most risky thing you can do, because the risk is you're 99.9% going to fail at that. So, we always talk about how we always use what the risk, what we do is not that risky. Going to business for you, is it risky? Is it not risky? Man, to your point, Blake, staying where you're at is, in anything, even if you're a business owner already, staying where you're at is the most risky thing you can do, whether you've already taken that leap to business ownership, entrepreneurial mindset, whatever the case may be, because, you've heard this before. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And so even if you make that step, Blake and I, we have to be getting better every day. We have to be challenging ourselves every day. We have to be managing our days better. We have to be pouring into our people more. We have to be constantly getting better, because there's always a risk there. And the biggest risk is to stop pursuing what you're capable of doing and what you want to do. The problem that we talk about on this show is the risk that most people are taking is never jumping in to begin with. And so that's, where we want to start. But once you're there, the mindset doesn't change. Just because you've got out of corporate America doesn't mean, okay, figured it out, I'm good, now show me the money. Well, no, it is a day-to-day mindset. And I think, Lyndon, correct me, I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about, and this may be a good transition, you can have an employee mindset as a business owner, and you end up failing basically the same way. You want to step into that a little bit?
I do. Real quick, I want to, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to make a note right here, but we have a comment down here for you, Nathan. And one of the sayings or quotes that is my favorite is, when growth stops, decay begins. So Nathan, real quick, address Skylar's question here, because I think that's important. And then I'm going to address the entrepreneurial or transitioning from corporate into entrepreneurship and some challenges that people have.
Yeah, so Skylar and I used to work together. So hi, Skylar. Thanks for jumping on. So Dave, in fact, Blake and I, we have a training on Tuesday nights with our office, and we actually played a little bit of some stuff that Dave Ramsey does. Big fan of his. I took this journey. I started this journey personally about a year and a half ago, and my wife and I were in a lot of debt, house included. We'd made a lot of terrible decisions. And to your point, Skylar, a lot of what we teach people from a financial standpoint is a lot of the type of stuff that Ramsey talks about. But we were going to be in debt for like 35 years, something like that, ridiculous. And we'll be out of debt now in about 8 years. So it's a lot. We're kind of, it sounds like we're not quite as far along the journey as you guys are. So that's, man, to be able to pay your house up, and Skylar's young. Skylar's like, I don't know, I feel like he's like 25, maybe he's older than that. But I mean, props to you guys. That's really awesome. And that's, and that kind of segues into, the clients that we help, the things that we do for clients that Blake and I do. And that's a little bit more of, our particular business endeavor. That's an awesome reward, seeing people come out of that. But as much as people are physically in a trapped kind of mentality from a financial standpoint, in a rut, thank you. The same is true in business. And so, Blake and I take it to a more different or a more detailed perspective when we're talking with clients and working with people. But we're just as passionate, and hopefully you guys have got this from the show, of getting people out of, debt, in a sense, the debt of mediocrity, because you can feel just as oppressed, having $50,000 of credit card debt as you can be in a job that you hate, that you don't have any way of, you don't feel like there's a pathway out of it. Right. So, hey, great question, Scott. We need to connect afterwards, man. It's good to hear from you. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. Thanks, Skylar. So to talk about what you were referring to, Nathan, I was talking earlier in our preparation. Now that everybody knows we do prepare, I didn't want them to know we prepare. That way, if we suck, they at least would have thought, well, golly, they didn't, there's a reason why they suck.
For the record, I don't prepare at all, so I'm completely out of that.
Way to go, Blake. All right, so
Wow.
What I was discussing with Nathan earlier, because Blake was late getting on the preparation call, is that sometimes you got to have the right mindset about why you're going to break free from the corporate world. Sometimes we see the dream and we want to be the entrepreneur. We've got to understand how to change our mindset from employee mindset to entrepreneurial mindset. But then there's another reason why people want to get out of corporate. And that is because, as Blake said, they have a boss they can't stand. They're really good at their job. They really understand it. They know the ins and outs. They feel like that they've got a talent for customer service. They feel like that they can do what he does as good or better. But the carrot for them to leave corporate is that I do not have a boss anymore, a supervisor. And so you've got to be careful into going into being what you call an entrepreneur, and in reality, you're just an unsupervised employee of yourself. And without the right mindset, you may not have the discipline, because you've been used to being told when to go to work, what to do when you get there, how to do it, and when to leave. And if you are not prepared to stay focused and stay the course and not let the distractions, which everybody has distractions every day, those are the challenges and the fires that we have to put out. If you're not prepared for that, the same thing would happen if you were employed and you refuse to be supervised. You're going to find yourself without work sooner or later. And so we've got about 11 minutes left. And so Blake looks like he's got something to say, but I want you guys to close us out today talking about what y'all do and the support that y'all give. If a person decided they wanted to follow y'all's example, follow y'all's leadership, get involved, do that as Blake said, on a part-time basis to start, kind of get your feet wet, because it's very difficult. Most people have to go into entrepreneurship and they either got to have a big savings account to get them through, or they're going to eat ramen noodles for a while. and I know what that feels like. So it's pretty cool that you guys have a process, established, that someone can come in. It's almost like a done for you entrepreneur model. So Blake, say what you got to say, and then y'all take it from there.
Yeah, I know. If I can transition from what you were just talking about, I love that. I love that comparison that there may be a lot of entrepreneurs that are actually unsupervised employees, right? That's a great way to think of it, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't succeed just for the simple fact that they lack the discipline, and which is a problem that all of us have on in different days at some points, because to be one of the biggest gaps in our human mind is the gap between knowing what we're supposed to do and then doing what we're supposed to do. There's not a lot of people have the knowledge, right? And that's why knowledge isn't power. It's, that's the applied knowledge. You have to apply it. You have to execute, and you have to do it over and over and over again. And there's actually a book that I'd like to get into. Was it Chopping Wood, Nathan, that talks about just bringing to light the different ways that most people work and how they stop before the compounding of their efforts. But that's what I love, honestly, about what we do, is that, and we talk about this a lot, most people have, I won't say most people, a lot of people are surrounded by negativity in their lives, and they have, that spills over into their work environment. They have a negative work environment. And so you have to have discipline to do what me and Nathan are doing, but we are also surrounded by people that are positive and encouraging and holding each other accountable. We meet every morning at 9 a.m. for accountability and to talk about what we've done the day before and what we're going to do. And this is not like, this is people that we've given permission to hold us accountable. We don't have bosses, right? We don't, but we're also, we're not supervised, I don't want to say, but we have this team that we've given permission to hold us accountable, and we hold them accountable also, because we all want to see each other succeed. And so you have this accountability system, and it's like you alluded to, and it is like a starter kit. They mitigate the risk. Most people, it's too risky to go into business for yourself. So what if I told you, if you're listening, hey, I got a way for you to go into business for yourself, take away all the risk, and then the risk reward ratio, something my dad always taught me, if you're going to look at a big decision in life, what's the risk reward ratio? So perhaps the simplest decision I've ever made was looking at something and saying, okay, so zero risk, limitless, truly limitless reward. How could I have an easier decision to make in my life where hey, all right, I'm getting a free shot here. Come here, fall flat on my face. For me at the time, at least I learned some sound financial principles so I could stop screwing up my family's own financial concepts, my family's own financial life, and implement that in my own life. But if I come in here and I don't fall flat on my face, I could change my life forever. All these, these things that I thought were going to happen, was getting out of high school and college, and dreams of playing in the NFL, and then all of a sudden that's over with. What do I do next? I'm just going to work 30 years for somebody and not really like it all that much and die. Now I get a limitless reward. It's already paying off for us. And now I get to basically run a business where the more I make other people's lives better, the better quality of life I have for me and my family. I get to invest in other people's lives now. I get to inspire them, motivate them, empower them to change their own life. And from that, I also have a better quality of life for me and my family. And that's the way that I want to live my life. And that's the way I get to live my life now.
That's awesome. Hey, I want to read a quote real quick. I'm going to let Nathan go, but this is one of my favorite quotes. And Blake, it basically kind of parallels what you were saying, but this is from Calvin Coolidge, and it says, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan "Press On" has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race.
Amen.
Hey, will you post that on the difference page? Because I want to copy that. I like that a lot.
I did about a week ago, but I will do it again just for you, Nathan.
Well, sorry, I
Thanks
can't
for
read
paying attention.
I can't read everything that's posted. Anyways,
Well, just read the good stuff.
okay, I'll start doing that. I feel stupid now.
Jeez.
No, but am I wrapping up? Do I get to talk now finally?
You finally.
I'm just
Good Lord. I got my counter over here says you talk more than anybody, but you go ahead. No, it's your turn. I'm kidding.
That's probably fair. So my experience in corporate was a little different in that I really, I've said this before, I like the people that I worked with. I loved what we did. I think it was and it still is a very good company. It has a very defined purpose, a software company. So I didn't have that perspective of, God, I got to get out of here. I hate, it's toxic and blah, blah, blah. But, my thing was just wanting something more, knowing that I don't think I was ever going to be fully utilized in that position. And so to me, the risk was, like I talked about earlier, was staying there, not jumping out and doing something different. So you talk about mindset in terms of, one of the big complaints people have in corporate or wherever, anytime they have a coach or whatever the case may be, is most people don't like to be micromanaged, right? Oh God, they just, they check on this and that. And if it's not perfect and all these algorithms and analytics and things like that we check on people. And most people don't like to be micromanaged. But and this is something that I have to learn, and I'm constantly trying to challenge myself. You have to micromanage yourself when you're on your own. And, if you're starting from the ground up, it's even harder. What Blake talked about, having a system in place that kind of helps you with, back office client things, things like that from specifically in what we do is a huge blessing, but they don't control your day to day. You are your own man, your own woman. And, I find that I have to be, I have to be hard on myself. I have to be the boss that everyone hates to myself. And it's a lot easier to do that. You don't end up hating yourself. You end up appreciating it because you see the results of what you're getting. But you have to have that level of intricacy and that level of minutia, even in detail, that you would otherwise, if someone was kind of casting it on you, you would be like, oh God, this sucks. But you have to transition and become that to yourself. Or just like you said, Lyndon, you will slip into you will be a self-employed person that should be fired.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, to Blake's point, having a foundation in place that kind of helps you with some of that is great. And having great leaders and mentors. And of course, we are ourselves, as we are being mentored and surrounding ourselves with those people, the books we read, the folks we listen to that are, way smarter, way more successful, then we want to take that knowledge, apply it like Blake talked about, and then do the same thing for the people that we're coaching, the people that we're teaching, the folks that we're working with. And so it's a constant kind of a factory in the sense of duplication, that we can empower people, we can help them make that transition, but then develop them, teach them to be the kind of person that can sustain that transition. Because why do people, how many people go into business? I think the very first show we talked about the cash flow quadrant, which is a concept invented by Robert Kiyosaki, or at least he talks about it the most. That so many people try to become self-employed like 3 times in their life, right? But they fail because sometimes they don't have a good plan. That's true. But sometimes it's because they don't have a good mindset. And mindset and culture are something that you don't ever, you can get the importance of it, but it's something like you always have to be refreshing it, because we live in a world, as we talked about earlier, that is inundating us with negativity and with defeat and with all the crap that's wrong, and you're a victim and this is someone else's fault. And if we're not constantly refreshing our minds with positivity and our goals, the why we're doing what we're doing, then we're going to fall right into that same trap.
Yep. Well, we're out of time. So we had a big audience today. A lot of people tuned in, a lot of likes, a lot of comments. Appreciate everybody that was here. We're doing this on Wednesdays at 11. The Exodus, it's being rebranded, so don't get confused. So I'm gonna end it, and we're gonna get out of here now, and we will see you guys in a couple of weeks, because right now we're just doing it every 2 weeks, but we're trying to talk Blake into being on every week. So we'll see how that works. Now that we just put him on the spot. Come on, you got to be a warrior, Blake. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Great show. See everybody next week.